Hi everyone, and Happy New Year. Have you ever tried to correct a native speaker's language? You know, because you're the one actually studying the language, and they just acquired it or figured it out on their own. If so, do hang around, and I'll tell you an embarrassing story from about 10 years ago where I tried to do the same thing. So, in my first year of university, I was not even 20 yet, and I had a free elective, and I decided to study Mandarin Chinese. And actually, it was really, really good. Um, I really liked it actually, and I'm glad that I took the time to do it, and rather disappointed that I kind of never really did more than one unit, but that was due to perhaps my restrictive university degree style. Anyway, enough of that randomness because, like I said, this is based on an experience of a language that I studied for about 3 months, maybe four, about 10 years ago. So I do not remember much of Mandarin or anything, and I am not claiming to be any good at it. So do keep that in mind. However, what we learned this phrase once upon a time, and I do not remember the tones, but essentially it's 没有意思. So when our lecturer introduced this concept to us, it was early on, and he said that this word meant this is boring. So you can say, hey, 没有意思 in Chinese class, and that was cool because you get points for practicing Chinese. And he said, oh, but like if you meet people from a specific region, from, southern or regions that don't, speak Mandarin as much, or expat communities or something, the cool kids, they'll tell you that it means something else, that it has no meaning, which is kind of like, if you think about it, I believe it's like the more technical, 没有 isa, like there is no meaning or it has no meaning. So I guess it was essentially just a difference of like, does the word, is it used in a more literal context or is it used in a more cultural, colloquial context? And where the story is going is, does that even matter? Because essentially we were walking some new friends that I had met, and I was like, oh, hey, I'm doing Mandarin. And another guy who was there was like, oh, hey, I'm Chinese. Um, what have you learned? And I said, oh, I learned this cool thing called Mayo Isa, which is like, oh, it's really boring. And then he was like, that means more like, oh, it has no meaning to me. And we say something else for this is boring. And then that just immediately clicked what the lecturer said. I was like, oh, this guy must be from that region that the lecturer told me to watch out for, and he's using the wrong meaning. So I was like, oh, I know about this. My lecturer warned me about you that, are you from this area? And he goes, no, I'm not. I'm just, Chinese. I'm from a Mandarin speaking community. And so I was like, oh, well, my lecturer told me that that's what it means. And, you're kind of wrong about that. And I kind of left. I think like we had to cross the road, and I was like, well, see you later, guy who speaks wrong Chinese. And I kind of think we didn't talk that much after that, now that I remember. There might have been the impression setting encounter that maybe defined our relationship. Anyway, so a few things to consider. Firstly, I actually can't even remember which way it was. I don't remember if my lecturer was telling me that it was meaning A and the friend was telling me it was meaning B, or the other way around. But essentially, what the result was like I was kind of telling off like a person who comes from the language community, that hey, you know what, like that's cool, but like my lecturer said it's like this, and you're kind of wrong. And there's definitely a better way that we could have had that discussion. I could have asked like, oh, my lecturer did mention this. Do you want to explain that a little bit more? Is there a context or a colloquialism about this phrase? But I did not do that. I just assumed that what my lecturer said was, what's the word we say, was holy or golden, and that he was the character that I had been warned about who would corrupt my Mandarin. Yeah, and which is funny because now that I think about it, he did, in other circumstances, love to tell us about how much the Chinese language varies. His favorite example was like, oh, sometimes people say 没有, and sometimes people say 没得, and that was his favorite example. And it's not like the lecturer's fault. He was a very, very knowledgeable person in China. I think he married into a Chinese family, he lived there forever, and then he lectured in it. So kudos to him. And it was definitely not the guy's fault because he was Chinese and he would have had more knowledge on it than I would have had. So it was essentially all my fault. So why am I telling you this? Maybe because finally, after years and years and years of this scene playing out in my memory and in my mind, I just kind of want to get it off my chest. So, Kevin, I'm terribly sorry. You're probably not never going to watch this, but I'm sorry for that, and I guess I'm sorry if you are a native speaker and some rando has told you that the way you speak is not correct. I think nowadays that like it's best to, even if a lecturer or a teacher or a curriculum teaches you in a specific way, always be open to different things because language changes. Language is an evolving thing, and people use it in different ways. There's so many different people who speak so many different dialects and forms of things. Even the way that I speak English is probably not the best because I'm lazy, and ultimately we're just trying to communicate stuff here. So I don't always focus in on using the right words, pronouncing the right words, or even anything like that. That's that. Stay humble if you're learning a language. Take from everybody, learn from everyone, and in your own experience, in your own home, filter what's good, put it on the shelf, and throw the rest of the stuff in the trash, or throw it in a book or a pile for things to go over later. But don't go around correcting native speakers as a language, especially if you've only done like A1 unit part 1. That's probably not a good idea. Anyway, so hopefully this is an interesting or lends a more comical flair to what I discuss normally, and hopefully we can get down to doing some language learning and progress in 2023. All the best. Have a good day. Bye.